Tanisha Houston, and I'm here to do my review for Game of Thrones. Tonight's episode is entitled Eastwatch, and I have to say that this was a jam-packed, heavy with content episode. It was so much in this, so many nooks and crannies to hide in, so many things, so many discussions to talk about, so many conversational points that I really, really liked. It was almost too much, in my opinion. And I have to say, it took me a very, very long time just to write this episode up. It was just so much here. And I love seeing that. And we know it's going to get even, you know, even more jam packed as we get toward the end of the episode. So thank you very much for giving me a lot to do. It took a many pages just to write all this up, and it took a very long time, and I'm very happy for that. This is kind of the thing. These are the things that I want to see in Game of Thrones. Last week it kind of felt like it wasn't enough. This was plenty tonight. This was plenty. So thank you. The first two people we go to is Jamie and Braun. Jamie and Braun come out of the water. Then Jamie tells Braun that he could have killed him. Braun asks Jamie, what was he doing back there? You saw the dragon. What were you doing? Jamie said that he was trying to kill her and to end the war. Braun says until I get my payment, no one can kill you but me. Jamie says that it was only one of them dragons. It was only one of them. And she has two more. One dragon made all this mess and she hasn't even unleashed all of her power that she could on us. And she said and Jamie says if she ever thinks of using the other two, we'd be screwed. Braun says we won't fight them with him. Excuse me. Braun says that he refuses to fight with him against the dragons. He realizes that he's going to have to tell his sister what happened here. And Braun just says that you might as well have just went on back into the river. I mean, I'm sure, at that point, I was sure that Cersei knew about it. But to hear about it and to experience the devastation that the dragons and the Dothraki caused is something that you can only see for yourself. And they just made a mess last week. It was just crazy. That dragon and the Dothraki just swept over the Lannister soldiers. I mean, it's amazing. It's really amazing the destruction that they can bring on, and it was just absolutely amazing to see. And Jamie knows that the Lannister soldiers and the Lannisters and any one of their allies are in real serious trouble. The next group of people we go to is Tyrion, Dany, Drogon, the Dothraki, the Tarleys, and the Lannister soldiers. Tyrion is walking through the battlefield with a disgusted look on his face. The Lannister soldiers then come over to Dany, and she stands on her rock and she makes this speech about how she's not really an invader, that she wants to make the world a better place, and that Cersei is, the bad queen and she's the good one. I mean, her words are very sweet and you want to believe them, but her actions just say something totally different. At least in my opinion. She just says something totally different. And then she tells them, plainly put, you either have to kneel to me or you can just die. And it really, her actions really contradict what Missandei said about her. Missandei praised Dany and said that if she wanted to leave, and go on her own, that she would let her go. But she certainly didn't let these Lannister soldiers go. She certainly didn't. She expected them to kneel, and she wasn't going to leave that spot until they knelt before her. Now, she tells them to kneel or to die. Some of them kneel, but not all of them. And then Drogon, steps up and he starts to growl and roar. Only the way a dragon could. And then a lot of them start to kneel as well. But then Danny notices Randall Tarley and she tells him to step forward. Randall Tarley, tells it like it is. He made it clear to her that he was not kneeling before her. Tyrion then speaks up, saying that Cersei murdered Queen Marjorie and wiped out House Tyrell. Randall says that whatever, there is to be said about Cersei, she was born in Westeros and she lived here all of her life. Then then Randall says that Tyrion speaks of loyalty, yet you murdered your own father. And then you brought a foreign invader and backed her up and brought her over to this country with an army of savages at her back. And you know what? You couldn't even really disagree with Randall because he was absolutely right. He was absolutely right. This is how the world sees Dany. This is how they see her, as an invader, not a liberator, who brought the Dothraki over here and brought dragons over here. It's not. She can, to me, she can state all of those double standards and she can say those sweet words, but in the end, it's the actions that speak for me. Your actions say something else. Her actions are saying something different from her words and the words of her followers. Danny, just wants to kill him, but Tyrion suggests that they take the black, which is a very good thing to suggest because she knows that they need people in the north. But Randall Tarley makes it clear and tells her, to her face, that you are not the queen of Westeros. You are not my queen. The Dothraki take Randall over to be executed, and then Dickon, his son, steps forward. Randall wants him to and step back and keep his mouth shut, but he also refuses to kneel. And I can't really blame Dickon for that either because this man is threatening to murder your father. She expects this young man to kneel to her even though you have murdered his father. So, I can't blame him not for kneeling. He stood with his father and died with his father. Tyrion, tries to reason with Danny and tells him just put them in the black cell, keep them as hostages. But she's determined to kill them both. She stands over them and she says, Dickon, Randall Tarley, I sentence you to death. And then she says Dracarys, and the dragon spits fire at both of them and burns them both alive. And all the while, Tyrion just has a disgusted look on his face. Tyrion is so desperate to hurt Cersei that he can't see that he's hurting everyone else too. He can't see the fact that these people have owned their lands for a very long time, for thousands of years, long before the Targaryens ruled over their lands. And it is just, he just can't see that. These people have a right to defend their own homes and to defend themselves. And Tyrion is so desperate to get revenge on Cersei that he can't see the mess he's making. He just can't see it. The next group of people we go to is Jaime, Qyburn, and Cersei. Jaime comes into Cersei's chambers, running into Qyburn on the way in. Cersei asks how many died, and Jaime says, we haven't counted. Cersei says, since we have we have the gold and the Iron Bank behind us, then we can buy mercenaries and armies. Jamie says the Dothraki can defeat any army, and they do it all for the sake of sport. He says that her dragons burned up 1,000 wagons, and it was shot by the scorpion, and it still didn't stop him from burning. On top of all of that, she only used one dragon, and she has three of them. She only used one, and she has three. Jamie says that we can't win. He doesn't think that they can win. But Cersei says that there will be no peace. She's sitting on the throne, and he killed her father. Cersei thinks maybe Tyrion can intercede on their behalf, seeing as he killed Joffrey and Tywin. Jamie tells her that it was not Tyrion, but Olenna who killed Joffrey. He says if you weren't Olenna, you you would be you would rather I mean, if you were Olenna, who would you rather see married to your granddaughter? Who could Marjorie marry that she could manipulate better? Joffrey or Tommen? Which one of those kings would have made Olenna the true ruler? Cersei wishes that she had died screaming. Jamie says if we don't get out of this war, we will die like Olenna. Cersei says if it's a choice between fighting and dying and submitting and dying, she chooses to fight. She asks Jamie, what's your choice? And that's a good question. I mean, she makes up a good point there. Dany's not going to show any mercy. She's made it very clear that she's not going to show any mercy to anyone who doesn't kneel. I don't blame Cersei for keeping up the fight. I can't hold it against her for that. The next group of people we go to is Jon, Daenerys, Drogon, Ser Jorah, and the Dothraki. Jon looks up to see Dany ride in on Drogon. Drogon then walks over to Jon and starts roaring and growling. Jon, then takes off of his glove and then touches Drogon's nose. Now Dany is trying to see what is happening, and she realizes that Drogon, didn't hurt Jon. He calmed down in Jon's presence. Dany climbs off of the dragon, and Drogon then flies away. Jon asks, "What happened? What happened when you were out there?" And she says that I have fewer enemies than when I started. She tries to bolster herself to Jon, saying that she was only trying to help everyone and that she needed to be strong and, try to bolster herself and talk herself up to Jon. But it seems to me like she's just trying to convince herself more than she's trying to convince Jon. She asked about what Sir Davos meant by taking one in the heart for his people, and Jon lies to her and says that Davos was just overreacting. Then the Dothraki bring in Jorah, and he bends the knee to Dany, and then Dany introduces Jorah to Jon. Jon compliments, Jon compliments his father, Sir Jorah Mormont, saying that he was a good man. Jorah, is happy and strong and looks healthy. Jorah says that he was cured of the disease and that he is surrendering himself back into her service if she will have him. Dany is very pleased and she's happy, and she runs to him and they put their arms around each other. And it was a really, really wonderful reunion. It really was. It was one of the best reunions that I've seen throughout this whole season. The Stark reunions were cold, but this, emanated warmth, and I really, really love seeing that. It was beautiful. The next group of people we go to is Bran, Maester Walken, the Ravens, the Night's King, and the White Walkers. This was a great scene. This was really, really a great scene. I love seeing that. Really, really great. Bran is skin changing into the Ravens. underneath the weirwood tree. Then the ravens fly to the wall to Eastwatch by the sea. They fly on from the wall up north, and soon the ravens come upon the army of the dead. The ravens see that there are thousands of them. There are thousands of them all walking together. And all of a sudden, the Night's King sees the ravens, knowing that it is Bran that is watching them, and then they all scatter. Bran wakes up and tells the Maester Walken that we need to send the ravens out and send messages to everyone that in the realm, so they'll know exactly what's going on. The next group of people we go to is Sam and the Maesters of the Citadel. Sam comes in to the group hall where all the other maesters are, and he overhears them talking about a crippled boy beyond the wall who saw the White Walkers. And Sam speaks up immediately and says that it is true. Sam advises them to send ravens to all of the lords of Westeros, ordering them to send men to defend the wall and have every maester do research on the long night. The Archmaester says it could be done, but he thinks that it is nothing but a ploy from the Dragon Queen to move men away from their homes so she could take over. She says that he will write to the Maester Walken in Winterfell for clarification, and then he dismisses Sam. After Sam leaves, they bring up the fact that yeah, they bring up the fact that his father and brother were burned alive. The Archmaester said that he didn't have the heart to tell him. The next group of people we go to is Varys, Tyrion, Jon, Daenerys, Jorah, and Davos. Tyrion and Varys are drinking in the throne room in Dragonstone. They think no, I think personally, I think that they have realized that they have backed the wrong ruler because she's really no better than Cersei. Tyrion makes excuses for Dany, saying that she is not her father, and then Varys says to him that I made the same excuses for her father, saying that when someone was burned alive, the flesh was burning, the screaming, the smell of the burning hair, I would say that it was not my doing. Varys wants Tyrion to get Dany to see reason. Tyrion then asks about the message Varys is carrying and who it is for. Varys says it is for Jon, the king of the north. Tyrion asks, what does the letter say, knowing that he may have read it already. Then we move on to Jon, and he's reading the letter, and he is relieved that Arya and Bran are alive. But Jon says that his brother Bran saw the White Walkers marching to Eastwatch. Jon wants to go home for fear that they may make it across the wall. Dany doesn't want Jon to leave, but Jon says that it's really not her decision, that he is the king. Then Tyrion says to bring back one. Then Tyrion, says to bring back one of the White Walkers to prove to Cersei that they truly exist. Then Varys says if Cersei finds out that they are in the capital, then she'll have them killed. Tyrion thinks Jaime will listen to him, which I don't think it will happen. Dany is still against Jon leaving, but he's the only one who has ever fought the White Walkers and who knows them. He wants Dany to trust him as he trusted her. He explains that if you would, that it would mean their survival. Dany nods her head in agreement. You know, Dany doesn't know yet. She doesn't know, but I got a feeling that she's going to find out what's really going on very soon. The next group of people we go to is Sansa, Arya, Bronn, Jon, Royce, and Lord Glover. Arya comes into the meeting hall. Bronze, Jon Royce, and Glover both tell Sansa that maybe it was wrong for them to back Jon and that they should have backed her instead. But Sansa says that that's very sweet of you to say, but Jon is doing what he thinks is best. Sansa and Arya walk together and talk about Jon leaving. Sansa wishes that he hadn't left, which makes it harder on her and the lords. She says that because he left, the lords are proud and very angry with him. Arya suggests killing the lords for their armies, but Sansa says they are the ones who helped us get Winterfell back. Arya then accuses Sansa of not wanting Jon to return. I mean, and trying to sink her claws into Sansa. And Sansa, eventually tells her to leave the room. I mean, yeah, Arya. It's something about Arya in this episode. It was entirely creepy. It felt like a Littlefinger scene. It felt like she was talking to Littlefinger instead of her sister. I think that's where Arya is in her head. I think something's wrong with her. I think she's crazy. And if it were me, I wouldn't listen to a word Arya says. She knows nothing about the Game of Thrones. All she cares about is killing. The next group of people we go to is Tyrion, Davos, Jaime, Gendry, Bronn, and the Gold Cloaks. Tyrion goes to try to talk to Jaime, and Davos goes to see Gendry. Tyrion enlists Bronn to help him talk to his brother. Bronn takes him to the crypts to spar, and Tyrion ambushes Jaime. He cracks jokes with Jaime about Casterly Rock and how Jaime managed to outsmart him, and how Tyrion would have been proud of him. But Jaime snaps at Tyrion and tells him, "Don't you dare speak of father." Tyrion says that he was going to execute him knowing that he was innocent. But Jaime doesn't care about any of that. He just wants to know what he's doing there. Tyrion says Cersei won't win, but Dany is willing to suspend warfare for a favor. Now, then we move on to Davos, who is walking down the street of Steel. He finds Gendry there, and once he finds him, he asks to help him go north, and Gendry is happy to accept. He would rather fight in the north than be down in the King's Landing forging weapons for people who tried to kill him and people who killed his father. Now, back at the boat, Davos tells Gendry not to let anyone know who he really is. Then the Gold Cloaks come up. Davos, tries to bribe them both by going away. And then they see Tyrion walk by, and then they start asking a bunch of questions. Davos can't, try to bribe them both one more time, but it's unsuccessful. They start asking these questions, and Gendry, just says to hell with it, and he kills them both with the war hammer. Davos then introduced Gendry to Tyrion, and then they all sail away. That theme was, really running strong throughout this episode. They try to get what they want nicely from their enemies, but in the end, they just end up killing them. It seems to me that killing is the only way to really get what you want, apparently. The next group of people we go to is Jaime, Qyburn, and Cersei. As Qyburn leaves, which is the second time that this has happened, Jaime tells Cersei that he met with Tyrion. He says Dany wants to meet for a parley. Jaime says that she thinks that the army of the dead is marching on Westeros. Tyrion thinks that they can provide proof. Cersei asks, "Are you coming to punish Bronn for betraying him, or but are you going to punish him for setting you up and betraying you with a meeting with Tyrion?" Jaime asks, "If you knew what was happening, why did you let it go on?" Cersei is willing to accommodate Dany to a point. Cersei says that we have to fight. We have to be clever and fight like father did. Cersei, is filled with hope, and she says that whatever comes our way, the dragons, the dragon queen, the army of the dead, we will defeat it. For us, we're going to defeat them. For us, we're going to defeat them from our family. And then she touches her belly. Jaime then realized that she's pregnant with his child. He asks, "Who will you say who the father is?" And Cersei says, "I'm going to tell them that you're the father." Jaime then says, "People won't like to hear that." But Cersei asks him a question. She asks him, "What did father say about the people?" Jaime then answers, "The lion doesn't concern itself with the opinions of the sheep." They kiss and they hold each other, and then Cersei tells him, "Don't you ever betray me again." The next group of people we go to is Davos, Gendry, Jon, Tyrion, Jorah, and Daenerys. Davos tells Gendry again not to tell Jon who he is, but Gendry just tells Jon anyway. They both, seem to like each other and to hit it off. And and Jon tells Gendry that he grew up on stories of Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon. Then Tyrion says goodbye to Jorah, who, and then Tyrion gives him the gold honor that he received when they were in the slave trade. Then Jorah says goodbye to Dany. He seems like he wanted to tell something, to Dany, but then Jorah sees Jon walk by, and then he just goes and kisses her on the hand and tells her goodbye. Then Jorah says that if you die, you won't have to worry about the king of the north. Dany says she was getting used to him. He says good luck to her on the wars to come. Now, before I go on to the next section with Samwell, I want to say that Dany is so happy to have Jorah back, but it was a Tarly, two Tarlys that she just burned for treason. It was another Tarly that saved her man's life. I mean, I just think that is really ironic, and I mean, she's burning people and she don't even know these people. Seemed like if she had known that a Tarly had saved Jorah's life, maybe she would have been more lenient with them. But her response is to burn and then ask questions later. The next group of people we go to is Samwell, Gilly, and baby Sam. Sam is working on his scroll work, and we've come to realize that he's completely exhausted with the Citadel. Gilly goes on. She talks about Maesters, and she talks about the Sept of Baelor and the Citadel, and Samwell, can't be made to hear any of it. But she does say something that was really crucial. She says that Prince Rhaegar set aside his Dornish queen and married another woman in Dorne. Now, if I had to guess, that woman was Lyanna Stark. And if it's true, then that means Jon is a Targaryen by birth, and he, in the Targaryen's mind, is the rightful heir. He is not a bastard, but he is a legitimate heir to the Targaryens, and he would outrank Dany. But Sam, doesn't want to hear, he doesn't hear a word of it. He doesn't want to hear it, and he is just finished with the Citadel. He decides to leave, and he goes into the restricted section of the library and takes as many books as he can. And he and Jilly and baby Sam drive away in their cart. And they say, and Gilly tells him, "What are you sure you want to do this? You always wanted to be a maester." But Samwell tells her, I'm tired of reading the achievements of other men, which is something that his father said to him, the father who is now dead. I can't wait to see what Sam is going to say when he finds out that his father and his brother are dead and that he's the Lord of Hornhill. The next group of people we go to is Peter Baelish, Arya, Glover, Ron John Royce, Maester Walken, and a servant girl. Arya has started to spy on Littlefinger. You know, as she said before, she wanted just to kill all of the lords so they can get the armies. So she's stalking Littlefinger and she's spying on him. Now she sees Littlefinger talking with a servant girl. He pays her some money and she tells him something, some kind of information. Then she continues spying on him when he's out in the courtyard with Bronze John Royce and Lord Glover. Then she spies on him some more with Maester Walken. Maester Walken gives Baelish a scroll. Baelish asks Maester Walken, is it the only copy that you found in Winterfell? And Mr. Walken says yes. Walken then leaves and Baelish goes into his room and then comes out shortly, a short time later. And then he locks the door and walks away. Arya then breaks into his chambers, searching around, looking under the bed and looking in closets and looking on the fireplace, looking all over the room for something. She searches around and then she goes up underneath the mattress and sees a little hole in the mattress, and then she finds the scroll inside of the mattress. She then reads the letter. She reads the letter that he was trying to hide, and it's apparently when, way back in season 1 when Sansa swore fealty to Joffrey and asked Rod to do the same. Now, no one really knows that, but Sansa, whether she meant to do it or not, has committed treason in the North. Arya leaves the room and locks the door, and then Baelish is watching in the corner with a grin on his face. I mean, he practically led her all the way there. You can tell that it was a setup, and it was something that Littlefinger would do. He knew that she was watching, so he gave her something to watch for, and I really enjoyed that. Good job, Baelish. Now, the last group that we go to is Jon, Gendry, Jorah, Sir Davos, Tormund Giantsbane, Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, and the Hound. Jon, Gendry, Jorah, and Davos arrive at Eastwatch by the Sea, which is a castle at the far end of the wall next to the ocean. Tormund and the rest of them talk about their voyage up north. Tormund thinks it's a bad idea, and he asks, how many queens do we have now? Jon says 2. Tormund asks him, how many men did you bring to get this done? And Jon says, not enough. He also asks about Brienne, hoping that she had come too, but Jon says that she didn't. Jorah says that he had hoped that his men will help Davos, will help them with this voyage. Davos says that he will remain here because he knows that he will be a liability, and Tormund agrees. Tormund then asks Jon, do you really want to go out there again? And Jon nods his head, yes, we have to. Tormund says that you're not the only ones who want to go out there. Tormund then takes them to the cell where Thoros of Myr, Beric Dondarrion, and the Hound are. Jon recognizes the Hound, saying that he saw him at Winterfell. Beric says that we all have to go out there and do this, but Gendry says not to trust any of them. Jorah then recognizes Thoros, And Thoros calls him a Mormont, which sets off Tormund because he remembers G.R. Mormont used to hunt down, used to hunt down his people. And then Jorah says, well, you know what? Your wildlings hunted down my father. Beric then speaks up and says that the Lord of Light has brought us all together. Then the hound jumps up saying, are we going to do this or not? And then Jon says, yes, we are going to do this. He says that we are all on the same side. And then Gendry asks him, how can we be? How can we all be on the same side? Jon says, we are the ones who are breathing. Jon and company stand at the tunnel, and then they all look at each other, and then they prepare themselves to go out, and then they all walk out into the blizzard. And that is where the story ends. The story was this was a jam-packed episode. As I said before, the story was very good. I appreciated it. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week. I really, really think it's going to be good, these last two episodes. I have two MVPs. My two MVPs are the Tarleys, Randall and Dickon Tarley, and Littlefinger. The reason that I've chosen the Tarleys is because they didn't kneel. They stood by their convictions. They said that Cersei was the queen, and they remained faithful to Cersei even unto their death. So for their faithfulness, I have to make them my MVPs. I've also made Peter Baelish my MVP because he outsmarted Arya. It was really funny watching her because as soon as I saw that little hole in the mattress, I knew that he was playing her, and she fell right into the trap. He knew that she was watching him, and he used it to his advantage. So for that, I have named Littlefinger my MVP as well. I don't know the name of the next episode, but I will, type it in my description line when I find it out. But I do want to thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope you come back next week. If you like my video, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will definitely be back next week for the next Game of Thrones episode. Enjoy your life as I do, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much.